My stepson told me I wasn't his real dad and had no authority over him. "You mean nothing to me. You're nobody," he said. When it was time for college expenses, I simply told him to ask his real father to cover the tuition. I'm a 38-year-old entrepreneur, the proud owner of a thriving craft brewery in the heart of Portland, Oregon. My name doesn't matter. Call me the guy who clawed his way from nothing to build an empire of hops and dreams. The brewery, Hearth and Hops, is my masterpiece, a roaring success born from sleepless nights and relentless ambition. Its exposed brick walls, flickering Edison bulbs, and the heady aroma of fermenting barley draw crowds from across the city. 5 years ago, this place didn't just change my life, it introduced me to her. Her name was Claire, a 35-year-old financial wizard with a sharp mind and a quiet allure that hit me like a freight train. I hired her to tame the chaotic spreadsheets that threatened to drown my burgeoning business. She wasn't just good, she was phenomenal, slicing through numbers with surgical precision while exuding a warmth that made late-night budget sessions feel like stolen moments. Her auburn hair caught the light as she pored over ledgers, and her soft laugh could diffuse my worst days. At first, I kept it professional. She was my employee, and I wasn't about to blur those lines. But the brewery had a way of weaving magic, and soon I was inventing reasons to linger in her tiny office, pretending to care about expense reports just to hear her voice. One rainy evening, after we'd balanced the books and the brewery was quiet, I took a leap. "Claire," I said, my heart hammering, "let me take you to dinner, not as your boss. As a man." She paused, her green eyes searching mine, then broke into a smile that felt like sunlight piercing storm clouds. "As a man, huh? All right, let's see what you've got." That dinner at a cozy Italian joint with candlelight dancing on her face sparked something unstoppable. One date became 2, then 10, and before I knew it, we were plotting a future together. Claire wasn't alone. She came with Jake, her 14-year-old son from a previous marriage. Jake was a lanky kid with a mop of dark hair and a polite demeanor that put me at ease. I saw a spark in him, a quiet resilience that reminded me of myself at that age. His father, Derek, was a ghost from Claire's past, a man whose alcoholism had torched their lives years ago. Claire told me stories of Derek's rages, of nights spent shielding Jake from his father's drunken chaos. He'd lost custody after nearly burning down their apartment, but Claire insisted Jake needed some connection to his dad. "He's sober now," she'd say, her voice firm but brittle. "Jake deserves to know his father cares." I nodded, swallowing my doubts, but the thought of Derek gnawed at me like a splinter under my skin. 6 months into dating, I proposed to Claire under the brewery's string lights, the air thick with the scent of malt and her joyful tears. We married in a small ceremony at a vineyard, with Jake standing proudly by his mother's side. They moved into my loft, a spacious industrial chic space overlooking the Willamette River. I threw myself into being the stepdad Jake deserved. I coached his soccer team, cheering until my voice cracked when he scored his first goal. I helped with algebra homework, bought him the latest gaming console, and planned family trips to the Oregon coast, where we'd build bonfires and roast marshmallows under starry skies. I wanted to give Jake the childhood I never had, one filled with stability, love, and possibility. At first, everything was golden. Jake called me coach with a grin, and Claire's laughter filled the loft. But Derek's shadow loomed. Jake visited him every other weekend, returning quieter, his eyes distant. I'd catch Claire staring at her phone, texting Derek about Jake's visits, her face tight with worry. Once at a school soccer game, I saw Derek in the stands. He was a wiry man with a scruffy beard, swaying slightly, his eyes glassy. He didn't look sober to me. I mentioned it to Claire, but she brushed it off. "He's trying," she said sharply. "Don't make this harder than it is." I bit my tongue, not wanting to rock the boat. After all, I was just the stepdad, right? If only I'd known then how my desperate need to be the perfect father figure was blinding me to the storm brewing. The first cracks appeared subtly. Jake started skipping soccer practice, claiming he was too tired. His grades slipped, and he'd snap at me when I offered to help. Claire, always quick to defend him, said he was just adjusting to high school. I doubled down, buying him a new skateboard, taking him to concerts, hoping to bridge the growing gap. But the harder I tried, the more he pulled away. One night, as we grilled burgers on the loft's balcony, Jake muttered, "You don't have to keep buying me stuff." "I'm not your kid." His words stung, but I laughed it off, chalking it up to teenage angst. Claire squeezed my hand under the table, whispering, "He'll come around." I believed her. I had to. Then came Jake's 16th birthday, a milestone that would shatter the fragile harmony I'd fought to build. I wanted it to be epic, a celebration to rival the brewery's grand opening. Jake was obsessed with social media, always chasing the perfect Instagram post, so I offered to host his party at Hearth and Hops. His eyes lit up like I'd handed him the keys to a Ferrari. "For real?" he gasped, already typing furiously on his phone. "My friends are going to lose it. This is going to be legendary." I dove into planning with the zeal of a general preparing for battle. I reserved the brewery's private loft, decked it out with neon lights and a DJ booth, and curated a menu of mocktails and gourmet sliders. I even took Jake shopping for a custom leather jacket, a sleek black number that made him look like a rock star. He strutted out of the store, grinning, and for a moment I thought we'd turned a corner. "How many guests?" I asked one night, going over logistics. Jake shrugged, glued to his phone. "Maybe 40. I'll figure it out." I pressed for a guest list, but he waved me off. "Just plan for 40. Okay? It'll be fine." I should have pushed harder, but I was too caught up in making his vision a reality. The night of the party, the brewery glowed with electric energy. Jake's friends swarmed the loft, snapping selfies against the backdrop of Portland's skyline. Claire's family mingled, and my staff kept the mocktails flowing. Jake, in his leather jacket, was the center of attention, laughing and posing for photos. I stood back, sipping a soda, feeling like I'd finally gotten it right. Then the door swung open and Derek stumbled in. My stomach plummeted. He was disheveled, his flannel shirt stained, his steps uneven. His bloodshot eyes locked onto me and a sneer curled his lip. "Here to celebrate my boy," he slurred, loud enough to turn heads. The music faltered and guests froze, sensing trouble. Jake's face drained of color as Derek staggered toward our table. "Move," he barked at me, jabbing a finger. "That's my spot. I'm his real dad, not some wannabe with a fat wallet." My blood boiled, but I kept my voice steady. "There's plenty of seating, Derek. Why don't you join the others?" His eyes narrowed, venomous. "You don't tell me what to do in my son's life, rich boy." I glanced at Claire, pleading for her to intervene, but she sat frozen, staring at her hands like they held the secrets to the universe. The air crackled with tension. I wasn't about to let this drunk ruin Jake's night. "Derek," I said, my voice like steel, "you can sit with the other guests or security will show you out. Your choice." His face twisted with rage. "Think you own everything, don't you?" he spat, swaying. "You can't buy my kid. You'll never be his dad." Before I could respond, he grabbed a tray of sliders and hurled it to the floor. The crash of glass and metal silenced the room. Burgers and fries splattered across the polished concrete, and a bottle of sparkling water shattered, soaking my shoes. My security team, led by my buddy Marcus, moved in like hawks. "Time to go, sir," Marcus said, gripping Derek's arm. Derek thrashed, spewing curses, but they hauled him out, his slurred protests echoing until the door slammed shut. The silence was deafening. I forced a smile, addressing the stunned crowd. "Sorry, folks. Let's keep the party going. Drinks on me." The DJ cranked the music, and the guests slowly resumed their chatter, but the damage was done. Jake sat rigid, his leather jacket suddenly too big for his slumped shoulders. His friends whispered, their phones already buzzing with gossip. Claire avoided my gaze, sipping her mocktail like nothing had happened. An hour later, Jake mumbled, "I've got a headache. Can we go?" The party fizzled out, guests slipping away with awkward goodbyes. Back at the loft, Jake bolted to his room without a word. I followed, knocking softly. "Jake, you okay?" Silence. I opened the door to find him curled on his bed, staring at the wall. "I'm sorry about tonight," I said. "I didn't want it to go like that." He didn't look at me. "Just leave me alone," he muttered. I backed off, my heart sinking. Downstairs, I confronted Claire. "We need to talk about Derek. That wasn't okay." She sighed, waving a hand. "He's Jake's dad. He's trying. Jake's just upset. Give him time." Her dismissal cut deeper than Derek's insults. I went to bed that night feeling like a stranger in my own home, the brewery's triumph tainted by a wound I couldn't name. The morning after Jake's 16th birthday party at Hearth and Hops felt like waking up in a war zone. The loft, usually alive with Claire's coffee brewing and Jake's playlists blaring, was suffocatingly silent. I shuffled into the kitchen, my head pounding from the previous night's chaos. Derek's drunken rampage, the shattered trays, Jake's humiliated silence. The brewery, my sanctuary, had been defiled, and the sting of Claire's refusal to back me up gnawed at my gut. I poured a mug of black coffee, hoping it would burn away the fog of betrayal. Jake slunk downstairs, his eyes shadowed with dark circles, his leather jacket swapped for a rumpled hoodie. He looked like a ghost of the vibrant kid who'd been hyping his Instagram-worthy party just days ago. "Morning, buddy," I said softly, sliding a plate of toast his way. "You okay?" He stared at the table, his jaw tight. "Fine," he mumbled, the word sharp as a blade. He grabbed the toast and retreated to his room without another glance. My chest tightened. I wanted to chase after him, to shake him and demand why he was shutting me out. But Claire's voice echoed in my mind. "Give him time." So I did, though every fiber of me screamed to fix this. The days that followed were like navigating a minefield. Jake, once chatty and quick with a sarcastic quip, became a specter in the loft. He'd slouch through rooms, earbuds in, avoiding my eyes. When I asked about school or soccer, he'd grunt single-word answers or shrug me off entirely. Claire, meanwhile, acted as if nothing was wrong, breezing through her days with forced cheer. "He's just processing," she said one evening, chopping vegetables for dinner with a precision that felt almost aggressive. "Teenagers are moody. You're overthinking it." Her dismissal was a slap, but I swallowed my frustration, clinging to the hope that she knew her son better than I did. I threw myself into the brewery, hoping work would dull the ache. Hearth and Hops was busier than ever, with craft beer enthusiasts packing the tap room and local blogs raving about our new IPA. But even there, the ghost of that night lingered. My staff whispered about Derek's outburst, and I caught regulars glancing at me with pity. Marcus, my head of security and oldest friend, pulled me aside one night. "You good, man?" he asked, his deep voice steady. That was some messed up stuff with Jake's dad. I forced a grin. "I'm fine, just a hiccup." Marcus raised an eyebrow but didn't push. He'd known me since we were scrappy kids hustling for tips at a dive bar. He could smell my bullshit from a mile away. Desperate to reconnect with Jake, I tried doubling down. I surprised him with tickets to a sold-out concert by his favorite band, the Midnight Runners. "Thought we could make a night of it," I said, holding out the tickets. His eyes flickered with interest, but then he shrugged. "Got plans with friends. Maybe next time." The rejection stung, but I didn't push. Instead, I left the tickets on his desk, hoping he'd change his mind. He didn't. The tickets went unused, mocking me from the kitchen counter. Claire's silence on the Derek issue was deafening. I brought it up again one night after Jake had gone to bed. "We need to set boundaries with Derek," I said, keeping my voice calm despite the fire in my chest. "He can't just show up drunk and wreck Jake's life." Claire's knife paused mid-chop, her knuckles whitening. "He's Jake's father," she snapped. "You don't get to decide what's best for them." Her words were a gut punch. "I'm not trying to replace him," I shot back. "But I'm the one here every day, Claire. I'm the one picking up the pieces." She turned away, her shoulders rigid. You're not his dad. Stop acting like you are. The room felt like it was collapsing. I stormed out to the balcony, the Portland skyline blurring through my anger. How had my dream family turned into this? The tension in the loft grew thicker, a palpable fog that choked every interaction. Jake's behavior worsened. He started coming home late, reeking of cigarette smoke and something sharper, weed maybe. His grades tanked and his soccer coach called to say he'd been benched for skipping practice. I confronted him one evening, catching him sneaking in past midnight. "Where have you been, Jake?" I asked, blocking the hallway. His bloodshot eyes met mine with defiance. "Out. Not your business." My temper flared. "It is my business when you're living under my roof." He laughed, a bitter cutting sound. "Your roof? You love throwing that in my face, don't you?" Before I could respond, he brushed past me, slamming his door. Claire, as usual, said nothing, her silence a betrayal sharper than any words. I started noticing patterns. Jake's attitude shifted most after his weekends with Derek. He'd return sullen, snapping at me for the smallest things, like asking him to clear his dishes or turn down his music. One Sunday, he came back with a new tattoo, a crude skull on his forearm. He was 16, for God's sake. "Did Derek okay this?" I asked, incredulous. Jake smirked. "He paid for it, said it makes me look tough." I turned to Claire, expecting outrage, but she just sighed. "It's just a phase. Let him express himself." Her apathy was maddening. I felt like I was screaming into a void. The breaking point loomed as Jake's 17th birthday approached, a year after the brewery disaster. He was graduating high school early, a feat that should have been cause for celebration. I wanted to make it right, to erase the stain of last year's humiliation. "Let's do something big," I told him, pitching a party at our loft. "Invite your friends, pick the menu, whatever you want." Jake's eyes lit up for the first time in months. "Can we have a taco bar and a live band?" I grinned, relief flooding me. "Hell yeah, let's make it epic." I poured my heart into the planning, hiring a local indie band, setting up a taco station with all his favorites, carnitas, al pastor, fresh guac. I even bought him a custom skateboard deck, hand-painted with a dragon design he'd once sketched. Claire helped decorate, stringing fairy lights across the loft, but her enthusiasm felt performative, like she was going through the motions. The night of the party, the loft buzzed with energy. Jake's classmates filled the space, their laughter mingling with the band's gritty chords. Jake, in a new flannel and his dragon skateboard tucked under his arm, looked almost like his old self, grinning as he showed off the taco bar to his friends. I stood by the bar, sipping a mocktail, daring to hope we'd turned a corner. Claire chatted with her sister Lisa, who'd flown in from Seattle, and for a moment the loft felt like a home again. Then my phone buzzed. It was Marcus, working security downstairs. "Yo, Derek's here. Looks rough. Want me to send him away?" My stomach churned. I glanced at Jake, laughing with his friends, and made a snap decision. Let him up, but keep an eye on him. I didn't want to cause a scene, not tonight. Maybe Derek would behave for once. I was wrong. Derek staggered into the loft, his flannel reeking of whiskey and stale cigarettes, his eyes wild and unfocused, zeroed in on Jake. "There's my boy," he bellowed, drawing every eye in the room. Jake froze, his smile vanishing. Derek lurched forward, nearly knocking over the taco bar. "Graduating early, huh? That's my genes." He laughed, a grating sound that made my skin crawl. I stepped forward, keeping my voice low. "Derek, there's a spot over here. Let's not make a scene." He spun on me, his face contorted with rage. "Scene? You're the one playing house with my kid, brewery boy. Get out of my way." He shoved me hard. I stumbled, catching myself on the counter as gasps rippled through the crowd. Claire finally stood, her face pale. "Derek, please," she said, her voice trembling. But he ignored her, grabbing Jake's arm. "Come on, son, let's get out of this fake-ass party. I'll show you a real celebration." Jake yanked free, his face flushed with embarrassment. Dad, stop! Derek's eyes flashed. Don't you talk back to me! He swung his arm, knocking a tray of tacos to the floor. The crash was deafening, salsa splattering like blood across the hardwood. I'd had enough. Marcus, I barked, and my security team swooped in, pinning Derek's arms. You're done, I said, my voice cold as ice. Get him out. Derek thrashed, screaming, You can't take my son, you're nothing, as Marcus dragged him to the elevator. The band stopped playing, and Jake's friends stared, phones out, recording every second. Jake stood frozen, his skateboard clattering to the floor. Claire rushed to him, whispering, but he pushed her away and bolted to his room. The party was over. I followed Jake, knocking on his door. Jake, please, let's talk. No answer. I opened the door to find him on the floor, head in his hands. I hate him, he whispered, his voice breaking. And I hate you for letting him in. The words were a knife to my heart. I thought I was doing the right thing, I said, my voice cracking. I'm trying, Jake. He looked up, tears streaming. You're not my dad. Stop trying to be. He shoved past me, grabbing his skateboard and storming out into the night. Back in the loft, Claire was cleaning up the mess, her movements robotic. This is your fault, she said, not meeting my eyes. You should have kept Derek out. I stared at her, incredulous. My fault? Where were you when he was trashing our home? You let him walk all over us. She threw down a rag, her eyes blazing. He's Jake's father. You don't get it. I laughed, a bitter, hollow sound. I get it. Claire, you'd rather let Derek destroy everything than stand up to him? I'm done being the bad guy. I walked away, the weight of her words crushing me. The loft, once my haven, felt like a prison, and I was starting to see the bars. The fallout from Jake's 17th birthday party clung to the loft like smoke after a fire. The air was thick with unspoken resentment, every creak of the hardwood floors amplifying the chasm between us. I woke each morning to a gnawing dread, the Portland skyline outside my window no longer a symbol of triumph, but a mocking reminder of a life unraveling. Jake's words, "You're not my dad, stop trying to be," echoed in my skull, a relentless drumbeat of failure. Claire's refusal to confront Derek's chaos or Jake's spiraling behavior was a betrayal that cut deeper than any insult. I was 38, the architect of Hearth and Hops, a craft brewery empire built on grit and dreams, yet in my own home I was powerless, a stranger masquerading as a husband and stepfather. The weeks following the party were a descent into a silent war. Jake became a phantom, slipping in and out of the loft like a thief. He'd vanish for hours, returning with bloodshot eyes and the faint reek of cheap beer. His skateboard, once a symbol of our fleeting connection, gathered dust in a corner. His grades plummeted, and his soccer coach left voicemails warning he'd be cut from the team entirely. I tried talking to him, but every attempt was met with a sneer or a door slammed in my face. "Leave me alone," he'd snarl, his voice dripping with venom. I'd stand there, fists clenched, fighting the urge to yell back, to demand respect in the home I'd built. Claire, as always, played the peacemaker without substance. "He's just rebelling," she'd say, her voice airy as she stirred her coffee. "It's a phase. Derek's influence doesn't help, but Jake will figure it out." Her words were a flimsy bandage on a gaping wound. I'd stare at her, searching for the woman I'd fallen for, the one whose laugh once lit up my world, and find only a stranger hiding behind excuses. "Claire, he's drinking. He's failing school. This isn't a phase. It's a crisis," I said one night, my voice trembling with frustration. She waved me off, her eyes fixed on her phone. "You're being dramatic. He's a teenager." Her dismissal was a blade, twisting deeper each time she chose denial over action. I sought refuge at the brewery, where the hum of the tap room and the clink of pint glasses offered a fleeting escape. But even there, the cracks showed. My staff noticed my distraction, their glances heavy with concern. Marcus, my security chief and confidant, cornered me one evening as I scrubbed kegs in the back. "You look like hell, man," he said, his voice low. "What's going on at home?" I scrubbed harder, the steel cold under my hands. "It's Jake, Claire, Derek. Everything's falling apart, and I don't know how to fix it." Marcus leaned against a barrel, his expression grim. "You can't fix people who don't want to be fixed. You're killing yourself trying." His words hit like a sledgehammer, but I couldn't admit he was right. Not yet. Desperate to salvage something, I reached out to Jake's school counselor, Ms. Rivera, a no-nonsense woman with a knack for cutting through teenage bravado. We met at a coffee shop away from the brewery's prying eyes. "Jake's in trouble," she said bluntly, sliding a file across the table. "His attendance is spotty, his grades are tanking, and teachers report he's been aggressive. I suspect substance use, possibly influenced by his father." My stomach churned. "Derek's a drunk. Claire says he's sober, but I've seen him. He's not." Ms. Rivera nodded, her eyes sympathetic. "You're in a tough spot. Jake needs stability, but if his mother won't set boundaries with Derek, it's an uphill battle. Have you considered family therapy?" I thanked her, but the idea felt like grasping at straws. Claire would never agree, and Jake would sooner set his skateboard on fire than sit in a therapist's office. Back at the loft, I tried one last time to bridge the gap with Jake. I found him in his room, scrolling on his phone, the air heavy with the stale scent of weed. "Jake, we need to talk," I said, keeping my tone even. He didn't look up. Nothing to say. I pressed on, my voice tightening. "You're throwing away everything, school, soccer, your future. I know Derek's messing with your head, but I'm here. I want to help." His head snapped up, eyes blazing. "Help? You're not my dad. You're just the guy who pays for stuff. Stop pretending you care." His words were a sucker punch, but I held my ground. "I care because I've been here for 3 years, Jake. I've coached your games, bought your gear, planned your parties. I'm not pretending." He laughed, a cruel, jagged sound. "Yeah, and you love rubbing it in my face. My brewery, my loft. You're just a rich asshole buying my mom." I staggered back. The air sucked from the room. Before I could respond, he stormed out, the front door slamming like a gunshot. Claire's reaction was predictably tepid. "He didn't mean it," she said, folding laundry with mechanical precision. "He's upset about Derek." I exploded, my voice shaking the loft's exposed beams. "Upset? He's out of control, Claire, and you're letting Derek poison him while I'm the punching bag." She froze, her eyes narrowing. "Don't raise your voice at me. You're not his father. You don't get to dictate how I handle my son." The word father was a dagger, and her coldness shattered something inside me. I walked away, the weight of 3 years of sacrifice crushing my chest. The final straw came as Jake's early graduation loomed. Despite his downward spiral, he'd scraped through with enough credits to graduate at 17, a testament to his raw intelligence. I wanted to celebrate, to give him a moment of pride amidst the chaos. We planned a small gathering at the loft, just family and a few close friends. I went all out, catering his favorites, truffle mac and cheese, Korean BBQ sliders, and a towering red velvet cake that took a local baker 3 days to perfect. I even invited Claire's sister, Lisa, hoping her presence would ground the event. Jake seemed cautiously excited, picking the playlist and helping hang string lights across the balcony. For the first time in months, I saw a flicker of the kid I'd once known. The graduation ceremony was bittersweet. Claire and I sat in the auditorium, my hands raw from clapping when Jake crossed the stage in his cap and gown. He flashed a small smile our way, and for a moment I dared to hope we could rebuild. The party back at the loft started strong, with Lisa cracking jokes and Jake's friends filling the space with laughter. The red velvet cake was a hit, and Jake even thanked me for the sliders, a rare moment of warmth. I stood by the bar, sipping a soda, letting myself believe we'd weathered the storm. Then Jake's phone rang. He stepped into the hallway to take the call, and when he returned, his face was a mask of quiet determination. "Dad's coming over," he announced, his voice steady. "He wants to congratulate me." My blood ran cold. The memory of Derek's drunken tirade at the birthday party flashed like a warning siren. "Absolutely not," I said, my voice firm. "Not after what happened last time, Jake. He showed up wasted, wrecked everything. You deserve better than that." Jake's eyes flared with anger. "That was your fault," he spat, his voice rising. "If you'd just let him be, none of that would have happened. He's my real dad. You should have backed off." The room fell silent, Lisa and Jake's friends staring, their discomfort palpable. I turned to Claire, my voice pleading. "Claire, please, tell him Derek's behavior was out of line. Back me up here." She sat there, her hands folded in her lap, staring at the floor like it held the answers to the universe. Her silence was a betrayal louder than any scream. Something inside me snapped. 3 years of tiptoeing around Derek's chaos, of swallowing Jake's insults, of begging for Claire's support. I faced Jake, my voice low but searing. "Listen to me. I planned that party. I paid for your jacket, your food, your damn Instagram moment. I did everything to make you happy, and your dad. He showed up drunk, humiliated you, and destroyed my brewery. He didn't even bring a gift, Jake. He brought shame." Jake's face twisted with fury. "Here we go again," he shouted, throwing his hands up. "It's all about your money. You think you can buy me, control me because you've got cash? You're pathetic." He turned to his friends, his voice dripping with scorn. "My real dad's coming. Maybe we'll finally have someone normal here instead of him." He gestured at me like I was garbage, his words slicing through the air. Lisa gasped, but Claire remained mute, her eyes fixed on her hands. "You're not bringing Derek into my home," I said, my voice trembling with rage and hurt. "Not after what he did." Jake lost it, his face crimson as he screamed, "You're not my dad. You're nothing, nobody. You're just some guy my mom married for your money." The words echoed, a death knell to the family I'd tried to build. His friends shuffled awkwardly, some filming on their phones, others staring at the floor. Jake spun to them, venom in his voice. "Let's get out of here. I don't want to celebrate in his house." He stormed out, his friends trailing like a defeated army, the door slamming so hard the windows rattled. I stood alone amidst the wreckage, half-eaten sliders, melting cake, fairy lights flickering mockingly. Lisa approached, her voice soft. "I'm so sorry. That was awful." I nodded, unable to speak. Claire finally stood, her voice cold. "You shouldn't have thrown the loft in his face," she said, as if I were the villain. "You didn't need to remind him it's your money." I stared at her, seeing her clearly for the first time. "Where were you when Derek trashed my brewery?" I shot back, my voice raw. "Where were you just now when your son humiliated me in front of everyone? You'll let them treat me like dirt, and I'm done." Her face hardened, but she said nothing, turning and retreating to the guest room. The door's quiet click was louder than any slam. The next morning, the loft was a tomb. Claire sat at the breakfast bar, pushing eggs around her plate, avoiding my eyes. Jake stumbled in at 10 a.m., reeking of booze, his graduation clothes wrinkled. I glanced at Claire, waiting for her to say something, anything, about her son staggering home drunk. She didn't. "Where were you?" I asked, my voice neutral. Jake sneered, his eyes glassy. "None of your business. You're not my dad. You're just nothing." He lurched upstairs, and Claire remained silent, her superpower of avoidance in full force. I stood, my resolve hardening. 3 years of being the perfect stepdad, of swallowing my pride, of opening my wallet while they spat in my face. It was over. The storm was coming, and I was ready to face it. The loft was a battlefield, littered with the ghosts of a family I'd fought to build. Jake's venomous outburst at his graduation party, "You're not my dad, you're nothing," had shattered the fragile illusion I'd clung to for 3 years. Claire's silence, her refusal to stand up to Jake or Derek, was a betrayal that burned hotter than any insult. At 38, I was the mastermind behind Hearth and Hops, a craft brewery that defined Portland's scene. Yet in my own home, I was reduced to a punching bag, my sacrifices mocked, my love spat upon. The morning after Jake's tirade, as he stumbled in reeking of booze and Claire stared blankly at her plate, I knew it was over. The dream was dead, and I was done playing the fool. The week that followed was a descent into a cold, calculated war. Jake refused to acknowledge me, his contempt a living thing. He'd speak to Claire as if I were invisible, pointing at me like a piece of furniture. "Mom, tell him to move," he'd say, standing in my path. Or, "Ask your husband to pass the salt." His words were daggers, each one designed to wound. Claire, true to form, enabled him, her silence a fortress I couldn't breach. I stopped trying to engage, letting their hostility wash over me like a storm I could no longer fight. Marcus's words echoed, "You can't fix people who don't want to be fixed." He was right, and the clarity was both liberating and excruciating. The breaking point came on a rainy Sunday, as Portland's gray skies mirrored the gloom in the loft. Claire and I sat at the dining table, the remnants of a tense dinner scattered between us, when Jake burst in, waving an envelope like a battle flag. "Mom, I got in!" he shouted, his voice electric with triumph. "University of Washington, my dream school!" He threw his arms around Claire, both of them beaming, their joy a stark contrast to the ice in my veins. Then Jake turned to me, his smile twisting into a smirk that made my blood run cold. "Tell your husband he's paying my tuition," he said to Claire, his tone dripping with entitlement. The room froze, the air thick with the weight of his audacity. I leaned back in my chair, a slow, razor-sharp smile spreading across my face. "I'm not paying for your college," I said, my voice calm but lethal. "You've made it crystal clear I'm not your dad, Jake. I'm nothing, remember? So why don't you ask your real dad to cover it?" Jake's face flushed a violent red, his eyes bulging with shock. "You're serious?" he screamed, his voice cracking. "You're doing this to punish me. You're evil." Tears welled in his eyes, but I felt nothing, no guilt, no regret. His tantrum was a performance, and I was done being his audience. Claire's face contorted with panic. "Honey, stop joking," she said, her voice syrupy with manipulation. "You know you're paying for Jake's education. It's what families do." I stood, my chair scraping the hardwood like a guillotine's blade. "Family," I said, my voice low and searing. "Family doesn't scream that I'm nobody in my own home. Family doesn't let a drunk destroy everything I've built. I've paid for your son's clothes, his games, his parties, his life for 3 years, and all I get is contempt. My wallet's closed, Claire. Figure it out with Derek." Jake's screams followed me as I walked away, plates crashing, chairs toppling, a theatrical meltdown that mirrored his father's chaos. I didn't look back. Claire stormed into my bedroom an hour later, her face a mask of fury. "I'm sick of your games," she spat, pacing like a caged tiger. "You need to grow up and pay for Jake's tuition. You're the adult here." I sat on the bed, my calm a stark contrast to her rage. "No," I said simply. "You and Derek can handle it. I'm done being your ATM." Her jaw tightened, her eyes narrowing to slits. "Fine," she hissed. "If you won't pay, I'm filing for divorce. You'll regret this." I shrugged, my heart strangely light. "Go ahead, my lawyer's on speed dial. We'll see how far you get with the prenup." Her mouth opened, then closed, her bluff called. She expected me to crumble, to beg, to open my wallet like always. Instead, I stood firm, and the shock on her face was almost comical. Without another word, she spun and left, the door slamming behind her. The next morning, the loft was a stage for their final act. Jake sat at the dining table, his eyes red-rimmed, his posture carefully crafted for sympathy. Claire stood beside him, her expression a practiced blend of concern and authority. "We've all calmed down," she said, her voice dripping with false warmth. "We overreacted yesterday, and Jake's ready to move forward." Jake nodded, his voice honeyed. Yeah, I'm sorry if I upset you. If you help with tuition, it'd show you're serious about fixing things. I stood in the doorway, their performance so transparent it was almost laughable. They thought they could manipulate me with crocodile tears and rehearsed lines, but I was done. Actually, I said, pulling out my phone, I spoke to my lawyer an hour ago. Divorce papers are being drafted as we speak. Their faces collapsed, Jake's fake remorse morphing into shock, Claire's mask of control shattering into fury. You can't do this, Jake cried, tears spilling. But these were real now, raw and desperate. I didn't flinch. Congratulations, Jake, I said, my voice flat. You won't have to deal with your not dad anymore. Isn't that what you wanted? Claire sprang to her feet, her chair nearly toppling. You're destroying this family, she screamed, storming upstairs. I heard drawers yanked open, closet doors slammed, the sounds of their retreat. They packed in silence, no more pleas, no more insults, just the mechanical rhythm of suitcases zipping and doors closing. By evening, they were gone, the loft echoing with their absence. The messages started that night. Claire texted first, "We can work this out. Let's talk like adults." Then Jake, "I'm sorry if I hurt you, but you're being unfair about college." I ignored them. The messages grew nastier. Claire, "You're selfish. You'll die alone with your money." Jake, "You're a jerk. I hope you're happy now." I blocked their numbers, my resolve unyielding. The divorce was swift, my prenup a fortress. Claire fought for a slice of hearth and hops, but my lawyer, a shark named Elena, dismantled her claims with surgical precision. Claire got nothing, not a cent of my brewery's profits, not a dime of my savings. I heard through Lisa, who stayed in touch out of guilt, that Claire and Jake moved to a cramped apartment across town. Jake couldn't afford UW and took a job bussing tables at a diner. Claire struggled to find bookkeeping work, her reputation tarnished by whispers of our messy split. I felt no satisfaction, only a hollow relief. I gutted the loft, replacing every trace of them, Claire's floral curtains, Jake's skateboard racks, with sleek minimalist decor. The brewery thrived, my focus sharper than ever. Marcus became my rock, dragging me to basketball games and dive bars, reminding me I was more than my mistakes. Ms. Rivera sent updates on Jake, who'd enrolled in community college, a small step toward redemption. I wished him well, but from a distance. The weight of their betrayal was gone, and in its place was freedom, a life I'd reclaimed, one pint at a time. Looking back, I see the man I was, desperate to buy love, blind to the cost. I poured my heart into a family that saw me as a means to an end, and it nearly broke me. But here's the truth. You can't force people to value you, and you can't buy loyalty with a checkbook. Walking away was the hardest thing I've ever done, but it was also the bravest. Today, Hearth and Hops is more than a brewery. It's a testament to my resilience, a place where I've found community, purpose, and peace. To anyone out there feeling like they're fighting a losing battle for love or respect, hear this. You are enough. Sometimes the strongest choice is to let go, to choose yourself. I did, and I've never felt freer. Here's to new beginnings, to standing tall, and to the life you build when you stop chasing shadows. Cheers.